We learned, yes, that Rico was created by Serac, and I just did it. You got to edit that out. Don't, yes.
No, you can't edit it out. He'll get more hate mail. Keep it in, Gene. Keep it in.
Hi, folks. This is Louis Herfin, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Showdown TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big D.
Welcome back to Showdown TV Westworld, the unofficial podcast companion piece to the hit HBO series Westworld. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Ashley Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And this is our Instacast, where we provide our immediate reaction and thoughts to this week's episode of Westworld. We just finished watching the episode. Roger is doing the Twitch chat live immediately after the episode, and we have huddled together to share our thoughts with each other and kind of plan our deep dive, which comes out on Tuesday. So Big D, Ash, this week's episode was titled Pass Pawn. It is episode 7 of season 3. What'd you think?
So there were parts that I really loved, and there were parts that I was kind of bored with. I think in the rewatch, I'll get more out of it, but I felt like this episode was for the general TV viewer. You know, not the people like us who listen to the podcast or people who are the diehards who will research it. Because a lot of it to me felt like stuff that we had figured out. You know, when you spend all this time with Caleb, the average viewer might have been like, oh my God, I thought his flashbacks and what he was seeing was really happening. And to see the backstory and what went down with Francis, I felt like that stuff we already knew. It was done well, and it was beautiful. The show was great to watch, but I felt like a lot of the hour long was stuff that I think we kind of already knew, and I was like, I want to get to the next step.
I don't think you can fault the show for that. I was just thinking, how nice would it be if I went about my life every week? I did my normal, Monday through Saturday, went out, had fun, exercised, ate, worked, whatever. And then at the end of the week, I'd wind down on Sunday night with this show called Westworld and just see what the story was all about. I'd be like, cool. Instead, we're doing a podcast and interacting only with other people who watch several times a week, rewatch the episode, look into Euclidean geometry and then write to us about it.
As much as this was the general information for the general viewer, they did give us, the fans, some confirmation on some information that I liked. We learned, yes, that Rico was created by Serac, and it's kind of the muscle arm of the AI. Solomon and Rehoboam, they are completely aware of the host development in the park, and because they identify Dolores, and there's no kinship there. Dolores is like, we're one and the same. And he's like, we are nothing alike. So no, they're not going to become allies at all here, okay? The mystery pearl was Hanaryo. And then Gene, this is the one that blew me away. Gene was fucking right. The man in black was in San Francisco and not Sonora, Mexico. Bravo.
I know people get really annoyed by my ambiguity. Guys, I went to journalism school. This is in my DNA now. I look at it and I say, it is likely that this is the case. But let's consider that Charlotte knew where the man in black was being taken. She arranged for the guys. Why would she need to track where he was going? So it makes sense that they were hacking into a system to get, to something else. But Big D, I always like to say, I don't deal in predictions. I'm not into tinfoil. I only deal in simulated and probable scenarios.
Yeah, I think that we got a lot of information. I think that you did a good job, Big D, just now at kind of laying out all the things that the show told us this episode. And more so than that, I think that we finally got the final pieces in terms of what Serac has been doing all this time. We've got to see from beginning to end what this rehabilitation or this recoding program actually looks like for those people who are participants in it, as well as how all these outliers got there, because I was very confused as to why anybody would sign up for a program like this, to be taken away and live in these glass boxes and be reconditioned, and knowing that they created the Rico app in an incredibly smart way to target crime. I thought that was brilliant. I really liked that reveal. And I think that all of Serac's plans and his motivations, that while I don't think that they are moral, I think that they at least all make sense. Finally, it makes sense. And we also got confirmation too from William as to how the data got to Serac in the first place. I think that also was a huge reveal that we got this week, that he is the one, not Charlotte. While she was a mole, it all started with William. And that is how he funded the park staying open. And I thought that that finally gave us the answer between the connections between these two kind of corporate titans, between Insight and between Delos. And I thought that was also really fascinating. I'm hoping that the final episode gives us the answers to some broader questions, like the motivation for maybe why Maeve is actually working with Serac, or why Dolores is now going to be the savior or not the savior of mankind. I think we're still a little unclear about that. And I would like to have some answers to those questions, but I felt like the reveals paid off.
Although we are labeling this a simplistic episode where everything was laid out in front of us, there is still a degree of duplicity there that I can see just under the surface. Like you alluded to, Ash, Dolores might not be saving mankind at all. I don't take anything that she's saying to Caleb as being reality. I think she's duping Caleb still. And there was even ambiguity in the plan that Caleb received from Solomon. If computers are anything, they're very literal. And so Caleb said, I want to know how to destroy your creator. Like, why didn't he say, I want to know how to stop Serac? How to save mankind? No. I want to know how to destroy your creator. Now it leaves the door open for the creator to be interpreted in some, different way. So I do like what you pointed out about the Rico app as well, both of you, in the sense that in this world, like, even crime is corporate. It's got an official app that is serving a purpose that reinforces the system. 2 episodes ago, I narrowed my wish list for season 3. All I wanted from this season was give me a detailed recollection of what exactly happened with Caleb and Francis the day that Francis died. I really, really wanted to see that. And I think Westworld did spend a lot of time covering this topic. It was the bulk of the episode. But I was satisfied with the why and the how of it happened. I don't know if you guys have seen Looper. I know, Big D, you're a big time travel fan.
Yes.
Looper's one of my favorite movies. And this episode gave me some serious Looper vibes, where you're in a business until you realize that business is going to take you out. And TV shows can generate fear and excitement in a lot of different ways. One of those ways is the not knowing who you can trust. You see that a lot in movies and TV, where the whole premise is you're on the run. You don't know who you can trust. Different people are trying to pull you in different directions. We saw a lot of that in Game of Thrones. And it's really effective in generating that suspense. And HBO managed to pull a pretty magnificent trick in showing us how Caleb could be, quote, the worst of them, while still being a character that we know and love. Like, he's not a bad guy. He's still not a bad guy. He was doing a job and then he was conditioned in a different way. On the negative side, I will say that Westworld is starting to feel, as several people have written in, including John Lish, like a really well-produced show that really just wants to be understood. And I get that. Season 2, the biggest complaint from anybody, including myself, was like too many mysteries, too many loopholes, too ambiguous. It's a little too wacky. Pare it down to something digestible. And I get that. I mean, you're HBO. This is a major TV show. I mean, I think of us as a podcast. The 3 of us, we're amateurs. We're just doing this as a hobby, and we adjust to accommodate the audience. We get feedback about our previous episodes, and then we change it. Like when Big D comes on Shappy Hour and everybody's happy, and we go, "Oh, okay. I guess we got to have more Big D on to bring in the big money."
But dude, did you guys pick up the best little Easter egg when the man in black is at the gas station with Bernard and Stubbs, and up on the billboard behind them, it says, proudly serving lab to slab, perfect real meat, now available here.
And it's confirmation that it is a meat factory and not, in fact, a dairy farm. So that made me feel a little bit better. But I'll also say one thing too that I thought was great in this episode was the introduction of Solomon as a character. I'm really glad that we got to meet him as an AI and as a new character, a new voice and all of this. I think a lesser show would have just left it at Rehoboam and just said, oh, well, we had these previous iterations, and creating the fact that there's now these possibilities that there's Solomon and all of the previous versions before him that are out there and being kind of held captive themselves with these large EMPs. Although that was that kind of big moment. Look, there's a large EMP over here. I wonder if this will be used later. And then of course it was, at the end. But I did really enjoy the introduction of him and his analysis of the episode, and kind of as that voice of reason. Gave me kind of Architect from the Matrix vibes, kind of giving us all of the information and narrative that they didn't have time to put in this season. And I thought it was well done.
I can't be crazy, but again, we just watched this. I felt like the voice of Solomon started off very robotic. And as it kept corresponding with them, it started to develop like an accent.
That was preferred. So Caleb, it told Caleb that it could speak to him in whatever voice he preferred. And it started speaking to him in Caleb voice. And Caleb was like, I don't like that.
Right.
And so then it changed to Jean-Mi's voice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his brother. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it went back to default. Okay.
Well, the default is Jean-Mi.
Well, I still want to go back and check it. You're probably correct, but again, we just watched it. But what I want to look into here is Serac's message to his brother. He said, "The man I was no longer exists." Now, are we talking the man he was and what his goals were, or physically the man, the living human was no longer exists? And why keep Solomon up and running? Is that Serac the only way to keep a legacy of his brother alive? Why keep all these outliers, the 9 out of 10 in cold storage, and only have a skeleton crew? So on the second viewing, I'm going to go look into that, see what makes sense, and analyze some of the screenshots I took, because I think there is something there, because you have to explain why it's still there and up and running.
I mean, to me, it seems like a simple matter of sentimentality. Like, that is his brother, essentially, right? But, like you said, Big D, I was like, why is Solomon so fucking chatty? Well, I guess if you've been locked in a hangar by yourself, nobody's talking to you for over a decade, you're probably like, oh shit, people. Like, hey guys, what's going on? You want to talk about plans or do anything? Let me give you a tour of the place. Check it out. Plenty of space. Lots of friends to hang out with. They're not very talkative, but they're here.
As the guards who are off duty walk by, you see Solomon like blinking his lights, like, hey, over here, pick up an earpiece. Come on, guys.
Yeah, all 5 guys guarding one of the most important facilities in the world.
Yeah.
And leaving windows open.
Well, Caleb is the one who has this conversation, especially at the end. He has this kind of heart-to-heart with Solomon and takes this drive away. And that's what I want to talk about on the deep dive. I want to talk about 2 things. I want us to go back to our Caleb deep dive and add to the file that we've kind of created about Caleb this season, and talk about what we learned with his interactions with Lawrence, and maybe how that plays into what made him an outlier and how these people are labeled outliers, because I was shocked at how many people were there in the human cold storage. It wasn't just 5 or 10. I mean, those kind of coffin-looking things went on seemingly endlessly from floor to ceiling. And I really want to kind of dive into that. And then I also want to look at the episode title this week, because it talks about past pawn. And I just so happen to be married to a former competitive chess player. And I had a big, long discussion with him about what past pawns are. And after seeing this episode and the way that the board is now set for the finale, I think the title tells us a lot potentially about what is to come. So I would like to kind of dive into that as well.
I know Westworld was renewed for a season 4, but I couldn't help but feel like this episode was a farewell. I don't know if that was intentional in drawing to a close, but I feel like they brought back a lot of characters, put them at their sort of final form, I guess, whether it was the fight between, Dolores and Maeve, or Stubbs with a sense of humor, the Man in Black facing off with Bernard. But Past Pawn was loaded with callbacks, and I thought it might be fun to catalog them all. Blogs do this a lot successfully with Easter eggs. I want to go a level up from that and make them a little more significant, but little things like Clementine caressing Musashi's face, or as you pointed out, Big D, that meat farm billboard. And one in particular that I was really hung up on is this idea of the Judas steer. Now, this was discussed in Westworld in a conversation between Dolores and Teddy. Here we see it being applied to these operatives that are meant to draw out outliers and are outliers themselves, such as Caleb. So I really want to dig into that. And there's a ton more that we'll get into in the deep dive, which comes out on Tuesday.
Yeah, and the one thing also I want to go back and pay attention to on my rewatch is the little subtle Dolores conversations, the Dolori. When Musashi gets the call from Charlotte she says, "Are you surprised to hear from me?" And he's like, no, that's good. That tells me things went well. So I don't think things are honky-dory on the Dolores front. And then also at the end, there was a distinctive shift in Dolores from badass warrior to accepting her fate that she will become a martyr. She's like, well, I guess she's here. She'll be the one to kill me. And it was such a different shift in her personality that I'm wondering if there's something else going on there, because it's not just a mistake, whether we're following the same Dolores, but I think there's a lot of information to really digest, and the first viewing was not enough.
I'm a little worried that the show is going to turn into the Highlander. It seems like swords are like the preferred weapon for hosts now. Like guns are just like, that doesn't work. You got to basically can open everybody. I did like, speaking of callbacks, the can opener being done by Hanaryo on Musashi was, or Sato, I guess, was pretty impressive. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, the cold open I thought was pretty amazing. This episode is one of my favorite cold opens of the season so far, for sure. But I do think that there's something to unpack there for you to do in the deep dive, though, in terms of, because I agree with you. It really felt like the penultimate episode of a series that was ending, rather than the penultimate episode of a series that is going to at least have one more, if not 2 to 3 more seasons. So I think that they're telling us something. Maybe we're going to have another world shift that we find out next episode. I mean, something. It feels like we're at the precipice of a big change in terms of what the story is going to be moving forward.
Is that actually called, Gene, a can opener? Like bisecting?
No, in Akane no Mai, when Akane chopped the dude's like head, we called it a can opener because it looked like it was like a can opener. But no, it's not. I don't know. I'm not a swordsman. I don't know. Maybe it is.
I don't know. But I laughed out loud when the man in black talks shit to Stubbs. He says, "Don't lecture me, you fucking can opener." So I was like, can opener? What's going on here? Is there a tie to the can opener? Is this some kind of martial arts,
Lord,
bisection move?
I just really enjoyed Ed Harris delivering the line, "That French fuck." It was like all the contempt of our audience, bottled into one man and unleashed on Engrad Serac. All right, well, that concludes this Instacast edition of Showdown TV Westworld. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We are on Twitch at showdowntv.com/Twitch. So if you didn't catch Roger's instant chat, you can go check it out right now. It is still up there, along with our Shappy Hour and all of our past episodes, including our Tiger King discussion. It's all at showdowntv.com/Twitch. If you haven't already, please go subscribe to our Twitch channel. If you're an Amazon Prime customer, you get a free Twitch Prime membership, and you can use that to subscribe to us. That helps out the podcast and doesn't cost you a penny. You also can follow us on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Showdown TV. On Facebook, just search for Showdown TV Podcast. The website is showdowntv.com. If you'd like to write in for our Telegraph edition, that's your listener mail and voicemail, just write us at host@showdowntv.com or call 914-719-SHAT. We'd love to hear from you. And some of those ideas, if you do get them in early enough, can be incorporated into the deep dive as well. That deep dive comes out on Tuesday. That's our follow-up on all the things that we talked about on the Instacast, plus more. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. Another way you can help the podcast is going to our support page at showdowntv.com/support, where you can find out different ways, including donations, purchases, and other that help the podcast as well. Of course, you don't have to do any of that. Just listening is enough for us. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, Ashley Schlafly, Roger Roper, and the King Bee, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us on Tuesday for our deep dive covering Season 3, Episode 7 of Westworld, Past Pawn. As always, thanks for listening, and stay the fuck at home.